Monday, we have your weekly installment of News to You. The Buffalo Billion, the most watched TV movie of all time, and the assassination of a president. They all made news this very week in decades past. Dave McKinley remembers when those stories and more were all news to you.
10 years ago this week,
we are announcing our biggest deal yet.
when the governor decided the bulk of the Buffalo Billion would be spent to lure two startup companies, neither one of which had ever turned a profit, to the vast new high-tech complex to be built on the Riverbend site, the former home of Republic Steel. Solevo made solar components and Sora high-efficiency lighting products. Neither one ended up coming here. We did get the Tesla plant, though, but have never gotten close to the up to 5,000 jobs so loftily projected this week in 2013. 20 years ago this week, when, in less politically correct times, kids dressed like this to take part in Thanksgiving pageants at schools, Ford produced its 300 millionth vehicle, a crimson Mustang. They've since gone well over 400 million. Johnny Depp was People magazine's sexiest man. Newspapers were still chock full of classified ads. And then, as now, there was all sorts of talk about revitalizing the Central Terminal.
Because it will be a mecca. It will be transformed. It will be an economic part of our regional community.
Still waiting. We didn't have Jimmy the Greek, but we did have Jimmy the Griff. Former Mayor Jimmy Griffin picking football games for us.
Our first game here, we've got Jacksonville at the Jets.
Jets at home, I think they're due.
And a new law was passed regarding your cell phone, as it were.
Wireless number portability begins Monday, letting you switch carriers and keep your phone number.
Something you were not able to do before this week in 2003. 30 years ago this week, when deer season opened, the Food Bank of Western New York would send a truck to DEC check-in stations to take donated carcasses. They don't send a truck out anymore, but they do still accept donated venison. Then, just as now, when it came to your Thanksgiving feast,
there's nothing wrong with turkey.
Although there may have been something wrong with this one this week in 1993. 40 years ago this week.
How many had a chance to see the movie? Did any of you have a problem getting permission to see the movie?
A movie which set off a lot of discussion and spooked a lot of folks at the height of the Cold War, and ended up being the most watched made-for-TV movie of all time. This week's News to You pop quiz named the film about a nuclear war between the U.S. and Soviet Union, and which was watched by 100 million viewers this week in 1983. Remember, this was back when they used to pack them in at the All-High Stadium for the City High School Football Championship known as the Harvard Cup, a longtime Thanksgiving Day tradition that no longer exists. And when we shopped at Radio Shack and flew on People Express Airlines and went across the Peace Bridge.
The rate for cars is going up to 50 cents from the current 35.
This week in 1983. Finally, while we don't usually reach this far back in our weekly remembrance, we will note that it was 60 years ago this week when one of the most shocking and tragic events in American history occurred in Dallas, Texas, after which a nation stunned, then mourned, as our ship of state had to navigate some of the saddest seas she'd ever had to sail. We also have now reached a point in time where anyone who actually remembers this would now be a senior citizen. But if you were to ask them today, they'll likely be able to tell you exactly where they were and exactly how they felt this week in 1963, when it was all news to you.
Thank you, Dave. So here is the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. That 1983 film that portrayed a fictional nuclear holocaust was called The Day After, and it was so upsetting to so many people that ABC television had psychologists on standby to handle calls from distraught viewers. 100 million people watched it, though, making The Day After the most watched made-for-TV movie of all time. And it aired, Patrick, 40 years ago.
I don't remember seeing it, but I remember the title. And I remember it being a thing. Let's see, 13, so 7th grade.
Right,
but
I would have been 4, so there's no way my parents would watch that.
But the day, I do remember that.